You earlier said that there was a more generalized or more powerful action than equality.
So equality is not a natural phenomenon. That's what I discovered. And I'm saying this because when I did some research on Robert Record, because Robert Record is cited as one of the first people to actually introduce the equality as
I think that
as
is accurate.
as a model of modeling relationships, right? And what I noticed was that he actually meant denotation. It wasn't actually equality isn't a real thing. So I think mathematics adapted that symbol to represent the relationship between the left and the right, but it's really not it's not really fundamental. So I went on a journey to figure out what was more fundamental than equality. And I uh I guess I had an epiphany and I realized that infinity was much more general. So if infinity was actually used, then I was like, okay, we cannot use numbers anymore because numbers only work with equality.
I wanted to address one thing just to clarify, because I think, as I kind of understand it, Alexander, it seems like you kind of have a good understanding of the infinite. You like kind of dealing with infinite things, but are not, or kind of questioning the idea of like finite sets of things, or like, which to me is really interesting, because normally it's kind of the other way around. Like, people really like finite numbers, and then when we try to get students to like generalize to infinity, they're like, whoa, what's is that a real thing? Like, can we just write down infinity and treat that as an actual number? But I just want to say that I'm pretty comfortable of the idea of like having finite things and also living with the infinite. And I don't think it's reasonable to abandon, finite numbers. Like, it's very possible to have one of something. Like, I can have one bagel, I can have two bagels, or three. It seems to me like there's no real way to kind of move forward if we totally abandon the concept of finite numbers. And please correct me if I'm wrong about what you were saying there. But and if we do accept that there are finite numbers, then it's perfectly possible to have equality. Like, if I have two of something and you have
But
two, then we have the
I,
same
I would
number.
almost argue that, like, you could say you have one apple, but isn't that an abstraction? That's only relevant to you, the observer. It's not an actual real thing, because one apple is definitely different from the other. There's going to be a different set of molecules and a different in a different arrangement. You can't say that one apple actually equals the other. It's not. It doesn't. That's not really true.
Okay, I see. So what you're saying is that, in terms of things that exist in the real world, when we compare them, it doesn't make sense to put in one apple and another apple on the left and right of an equal sign, because those are two different apples, right? Okay, I agree with that.
Yeah, they're not truly equal, but they're, in our minds, for our purposes, they're
Yeah.
equal. So that equality is an abstraction. It's in your head.
So, well, okay, the question of whether the abstraction is in our head, or whether it's in the world itself, I think is separate, because I think that what we're really talking about is what are the useful abstractions, or like what are the ones that we want to make, right? The infinity is also an abstraction, I would say, because it's not, not like
Totally.
things are
Yeah,
right, like
completely.
symbols we write down. Now, I would say that the concepts of having one apple or two apples or three apples are still, like, these are still a useful concept, right? Just as infinity is a useful concept.
But the question, Max, is which is more general, which is more general, and if intelligence is an abstraction of generality, then infinity will be more appropriate to represent that relationship, right?